How's it going, YouTube? Comments, and today with another video. And today, guys, what the bring to you is going to be the ban list prediction. There's so many different ways the ban list can go. A lot of cards can go off the list, a lot of cards can go on the list, and then even just reviewing over everything myself, there's a lot of cards that I'm surprised are even still on the list. And it's really interesting to hear all of the different discussions behind different cards. Max C alone is the #1 card that people look for on the ban list because that card is degenerate. And we're always really wondering if that card's ever going to come back. Hopefully not. Another card that a lot of people look for is things like Masterpiece. Again, hopefully not. Under cards like Erupt, that card is absolutely menacing, and then it has the Dryden effect too. If you look at Agnister, the amount that they have to do just to summon a rival, and then it's not even a quick effect pop. I think that Masterpiece is another card that will just always be on the ban list, but who really knows? And that's another reason why I really like talking about the ban list, because there's just so many different takes. So I do hope that you enjoyed today's video. I have my predictions here. If you have your own predictions, definitely comment them down below. I have two cards I'm going to talk about at the end of the video. Not necessarily do I think that they're going to go on the ban list, but definitely worth mentioning. If you haven't already checked out my sponsors over at Imperium Duelist, Dragon Shield, or Gem, definitely go ahead down in the description below, check them all out, and without further ado, let's hop right into our first topic. So the first card that I have for you today is going to be Diabolo's Mind Hacker. Now this card's pretty crazy with what it allows you to do, not only getting a lot of information by looking at your opponent's extra deck and then ripping one face down, you're also allowed to trigger the Shangri-La effect to go ahead and lock out multiple zones from your opponent. This card is absolutely absurd and definitely gotta go. The Kashtira strategy did evolve a bit to the Force Summon a Rise Heart with Forbidden Lance, which is why we're seeing a short-term resurgence in cards like Kurakara. That's pretty cool, as well as Kaiju's, but we're still seeing a huge issue with Diabolos because when your opponent does go for the full combo, if you are playing a back row strategy, a lot of times this can be more crucial than ever, because even post-siding, as long as you have cards like Raw Spear Mode or even the Lava Golem, it can be pretty nice, but a lot of your outs to the bigger boards right now are going to be cards like Thrust, Tactics, Dark Ruler. When you're not able to even activate those on the board, it can be very problematic. Looking at another card that's really problematic, it's going to be Gimmick Puppet Nightmare. Now, a lot of people want to see Expulsion gone. I still like it for extension plays into your opponent's board when you're playing Branded, but at the same time, there's going to be other cards like Ra's Disciple and Ido, but at the same point, I do think that Gimmick Puppet Nightmare is quote-unquote the most unfair one that we have, so I do think this one has to go. Being able to lock for the whole turn, I really just don't like lingering effects. I think they're not really healthy for the game, and for this reason, I think this card really does gotta get banned. But the next two cards, either bring Red Reboot back to 3 or ban these two cards, because virtually there's no counterplay to them. Besides siding Crossout, which just seems awful every time you have to do it, Erad is particularly really crazy because it's the same thing that I was talking about when your zones are locked. Those power spell cards are going to be the best way that you can go ahead and break a huge board. Mind Control, Change of Heart, Tactics, and when all those get ripped away from you and you're playing against one of the best decks in the meta, it gets pretty rough trying to go ahead and win that game. It just feels really unwinnable, and especially it's because most of the time people are like, well, my rogue strategy utilizes these cards and it really helps us play the game, but the problem's not that. The problem is where tier 1 decks start using these cards and then all of a sudden you have no way to break the board, and it can get pretty annoying going into a tournament and then going into a game 2 or game 3 scenario and then just auto losing to a win button. And that's exactly what Erad and D-Barrier are. They're just win buttons. And so we just saw Artifact Scythe get banned as well. Just more of those win button cards really need to go. So again, either bring back Red Reboot to 3 or go ahead and get rid of Erad and D-Barrier. Even D-Barrier alone, if you don't go ahead and just win the game immediately when you flip it, if you have the second one, your opponent's just never even able to have a chance at playing the game. So I definitely want to see either of these cards get banned, preferably both, just because these cards are really absurd. Talking about cards that could get limited though, Blaster, this is a card that just should have come back a long time ago. It's not like Title. Title Pitch Enchantress would be one of the craziest things that we'd be able to do. But Blaster, hopefully it's like salad support, or it's just going to be utilized somewhere in the meta. I think this card's incredibly based. It's really cool. All of the Dragon Rulers at some point I do hope get back into the game, at least at 1. But Blaster is definitely going to be the safest one to go ahead and put the 1. Moving forward off of this though, we do have wind-up carriers and Mighty. I really don't understand why this is on the ban list. Even if it came back to 1, I don't even think that this deck would break the top 10. If you're more worried about Hunter loops, then I would say just go ahead and ban Hunter and give back Zen Mighty. But at the same point, I really don't think that Zen Mighty needs to be on the ban list. At least put it to 1 so we can see what it'll do in the format. But the last one going to the limited section, hopefully, is going to be Harp Horror. Now, I think that Harp Horror has the best time to come back right now, just because of the fact there's so many Bishals in the format that playing Orcus seems like a very scary idea, especially going into next format where Bishals are going to be really prevalent because of the new synchros. So I do think that right now, if there's going to be a time to put Harp Horror to 1, this would definitely be it. Talking about cards that could go to semi-limited, I would say the first one would be Engage. We are getting new striker support in Battles of Legends, Monstrous Revenge, so I could definitely see this card going to 2. The next one's going to be Infernity Archfiend. Now, with this card, you can't put Launcher and Archfiend to multiple. You can only do one or the other, and I think that Archfiend is going to be the safer bet here. I do think that Infernity is one of the coolest archetypes that we've ever received, and I definitely want to see what it does in 2023, so why not go ahead and put Archfiend to 2 and just see what this really does for the deck. Now, as for the last card that I could see going to 2 would be Astrograph. Now, I do think that Pendulum needs a resurgence in some form, just because we haven't really seen it in the spotlight very often, at least anywhere recently. Draco Slayer was a really cool deck. It's being outshined right now by Kashtira because, again, locking your zone out is pretty crazy. But at the same time, I do want to see Pendulum at least get a shot at being in the meta again. Maybe not Electromite, because there's only so much that you can get Pendulum before it's just the craziest deck you've ever seen. But I do think that at least going the route of giving them back more pieces would be really cool. Again, Kieran might be a little too much. I would like to see it at some point, but maybe we just start giving back like Astrograph to 2 and just really see where it goes. But now for the Unlimits, I could see the first one being Recital Starling. I really don't see this being a problem. Samori's still banned, so all the support for Lyralist could just go back to 3. I would like to see Featherstorm get banned at some point. I just think that card's really degenerate. It just has to go at some point. But Recital Starling can definitely go back to 3. The next card is going to be Gazelle. Please, Konami, put Gazelle back to 3. This deck was so much fun back in Toss format. It just has so many resources. This deck really just needs a really powerful spell and maybe another good Gazelle-like extender, and I think that this deck actually has really good potential. Again, when it comes to resource game and really being able to be consistent, it's not Math Mech power level, but I do think that Salad has a lot of potential in the future, as long as the support that gets released for it is good. The next card that I have for you is going to be Sekka's Late. I've been asking for this for so long. Block Dragon was the reason this card went to the ban list, and now that card's banned, and you can't even play this in decks like super heavy because you turn off the equips as well. So I don't really think that this is going to be a problem putting this back into the meta, nor do I think that anyone's really going to play it. The fourth one that I have for you is going to be Ancient Fairy Dragon. Again, it's Ancient Fairy Dragon. It's hard once return. I don't really see us playing more than just one of this card. You can just go auto to 3. It's not going to do anything. And then last is going to be Steam the Cloak. Now, Steam the Cloak is a really cool card that got put to 1 and did literally nothing. And I don't think putting it to 3 is going to change that. So I think that Konami will end up putting this to 2 and then 3, but you could just put it straight to 3, and I don't think literally anything's going to happen. And then the only one that I didn't put on here that could also go to 3 is Time Seal. It's just not going to do anything. But there are 2 cards that I want to talk about today that I think are worth mentioning, but they're not going to end up on the ban list. So the first one is going to be Pot of Prosperity. Now, this one's been a huge debate, and I can understand why. It's the craziest top deck. You literally have to negate this, because if your opponent hits Lava Golem, Spear Mode, Evenly, Dark Ruler, there's so many cards that you could want to see off Prosperity, and literally any starter in your deck. This card also allows you to search any card in your deck. And what do I mean by that? When Tri-Brigade was the best deck with Imperial Order, they would literally go through 3/4 of their deck, then rip Prosperity and essentially search Imperial Order, because there were so few cards in their deck that the odds of seeing Imperial Order were super high. So I can really see the argument for Prosperity and why people would want this to 1 or 0. I don't personally see it being on the ban list. I don't think any of the pot cards should be on the ban list. I think they're all fine, but I definitely understand the argument behind this. So definitely let me know what you think down in the comments below as well. The last one is going to be the runic engine in general. I don't really feel like the runic engine does anything unfair, and it also trades your battle phase. So that's a pretty hefty trade-off. Now, the amount that you can net off the cards is pretty crazy, but I don't really believe that it's doing anything unfair. Now, if you were going to hit the engine, you definitely have to just limit Hugin to 1 because literally nothing else matters. If you go ahead and hit Fountain to 1, it's like fine. You can still recur it from the graveyard too, and then you still have multiple Hugin to search it. But if you limit Hugin and then you negate Hugin, it just makes the situation with the engine a lot more awkward. So definitely let me know what you think about the runic engine down below as well, because I don't personally feel like either of these cards really need the hit. I just don't really feel like either of them do anything that's like too crazy. Prosperity maybe before the runic engine, but I can definitely see the other side of the argument as well. I do hope that you enjoyed today's video. If you haven't already subscribed to the channel, definitely go ahead and subscribe so we can hit 20,000 subscribers by the end of the year. And I hope that everyone has a wonderful night. Thank you.